Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with Vanessa Ford. Vanessa Ford is the co-founder of Menolabs, a company fundamentally changing the conversation, treatment, and research surrounding the menopausal transition. Vanessa was prompted to action after experiencing severe symptoms of her own and finding that there was little in the way of help for her, as well as millions of other women just like her. She refused to accept the situation as inevitable and found the research, the team, and capital to do something about it. Together, that team built a $30 million company during COVID lockdown. I love it. Uh, you know, Everything is not canceled. There's so much we can be doing during a lockdown to pivot and be creative. And, how they say that necessity is the mother of invention. It causes us to have to think differently. And sometimes the solutions we come up with are pretty magic. So pretty amazing. The conversation today with Vanessa was gold for everybody out there. All you women at one point or another have probably had mood swings. No, not you, right? Or maybe hot flashes. Yeah, a period that went awry, menopause brain, foggy thinking, weight gain, mysterious weight gain, sleepless nights, or unable to go to sleep or unable to stay asleep. She addresses all of this today and gives us, the reason why our current approach to menopause is fundamentally broken and how to fix it. And she gives us real solutions, natural solutions to a lot of the symptoms that we experience, and hope, of course, and reassurance, and just a conversation, because I feel like so many of us are either afraid of menopause. We've thought, oh gosh, is that going to happen to me? And it can be something that you embrace. I think just embracing our age and embracing where we are in life at any age, young or old, because when we're young, we wish we were older. When we're older, we wish we were younger. I just say embrace where you are right now in this very moment and find this, the natural solutions that help you, and just realize that for everything out there, we can find the worst case scenario or the best case scenario. And as my last podcast said, focus on the good and look for the evidence of what you want, because there's plenty of it. So without further ado, I just want us to dive into this episode. And you guys, she's giving a free book away, How to Master Menopause. So make sure to get my link. We've probably said it a few times towards the end. All right, let's get it. The answer to menopause on my show. Lots of answers today for you guys out there for perimenopause, menopause, and everything in between. Probably some things we haven't named because it's not a conversation people like to have very often. So without further ado, I want to welcome the one, the only Vanessa Ford to the Sisterhood of Sweat today.
Oh my gosh, you're so kind. I'm really happy to be here, Linda. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. I mean, gosh, let's say I can say my listeners' ears are already perked because as women, we suffer silently through so many things, from adolescence to your preteens. You're going through perimenopause, you go through pregnancy, you go through all this stuff, then you hit menopause and you're like, what the hell is this?
Exactly. Boy, did you nail it. Yes. What the hell is this?
Yeah. So for my listeners out there, I want to give them a little bit of background about you. because we don't bring somebody on to answer questions that aren't experts in their field. So Vanessa, take it away and just give me your whole, from bottom to top, your story. Also, I want to know about your perimenopausal journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm happy to talk about it. So I am Vanessa Ford. I am 48 years old, and a lot of people say to me, you don't look like menopause is a concern. Why are you even talking about menopause? And I think what a lot of people don't understand is that menopause is not, yes, it's that 12-month, those consecutive 12 months where you don't have a period, but it's a lot more than that. And I didn't know this. So when I was 44, I had a period that lasted for 3 weeks, which is completely not normal for me. And I thought I had cancer. I was
My gosh.
Googling things, and when you Google when you Google something, the first thing you find out is you have cancer, right? And I didn't know that there was this thing called perimenopause. And so when I talked to my doctor, after about 2.5 weeks, I said, I'm really concerned. I think there's something really seriously wrong with me. And she said, no, you're 44, you're in perimenopause. And I said, what is perimenopause? I had never heard of it. I didn't know it was a thing. My mom went into menopause because she had a hysterectomy. And she was in her 30s when she had her hysterectomy. So we didn't talk about it. And it turns out women just don't talk about it. I thought I was unique. I thought that this was, special. I thought that moms and daughters and grandmas and granddaughters talked about this, and they don't, because it's really taboo. And so, she told me, you're in perimenopause. Stop freaking out. It's normal. And I am someone who, when I encounter something that I don't understand, I go right into the roots of it. I start analyzing and researching and talking to anyone who will even listen to me.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
And so over the last 4 years, I have really become educated on the subject. I'm not a doctor. I have a research doctor who is one of my co-founders. The company that I started with my very good friend, Danielle Jacobs, about 1.5 years ago is called Menolabs. And the whole point of the company is to fundamentally change the way we talk about menopause, the way we view it in society, the way we research it medically and clinically, and the way we treat it, so that women can move forward with the best health outcomes and the best quality of life, because that's what I wanted for myself. And I thought, okay, if it's happening to me and it's happening to the women I'm talking with, this is a problem that needs to be solved.
Well, let me ask you, why should we not be afraid of menopause, and what are the misconceptions about menopause?
All right. So the first misconception about menopause is what I mentioned before, that it's this thing that happens when you're 60, and it means you don't have your period anymore, and you might have some hot flashes, right? That's what I thought menopause was. And that when I'm talking to women, and I talk to thousands of women a month because of the research that I do, that it's the prevailing narrative around menopause is that it's this thing that happens when you're older, and you don't have to worry about it until you're in your 60s, and you're going to have some hot flashes, and big deal. That's the first misconception. It really starts a whole lot earlier, but it is not something to fear. And I think we have fear around it because we aren't educated. We don't know about it.
People are afraid of change, and it's a definite change. It's called the change for a reason.
Exactly. It's called the change. You're so right. It's called the change. And I think, for a lot of women, it's scary. It's even scarier once you realize you're in it and you don't know where to go for answers. Because here's the thing I've learned by talking to female doctors who I have a good friend who's an OB-GYN. And when I started going through this and we started talking about it, she said, she's in her mid-50s and she's already gone through it. And she said, oh yeah, when I was going through perimenopause, I didn't even know it. We get 10 minutes of training in medical school around menopause, and that's it. She's an OB-GYN who's supposed to know about these things, and she just completely missed identifying her symptoms as perimenopausal symptoms because she hadn't received the proper education. So when a female doctor who specializes in reproductive organs tells you they don't know how menopause works, I mean, that it's funny now.
It's the same for
But it's
nutrition and other things. They do not, like, I have studied it extensively. They do not study it. Your doctor doesn't study it for very long at all. A few weeks probably, but a few months at most.
It's infuriating, right? I mean, that was the thing that set me off was that, my female doctor said to me, well, I can give you some HRT or some antidepressants. I didn't want to do either of those. I like natural solutions. I don't tend to put things in my body that I don't understand. And so for me, HRT, there's a history of breast cancer in my family, so it's not a great option for me. And antidepressants, I was like, no way. I have heard about, read about the side effects.
It just takes, I'm not saying that it's, if you really need to have it, that you shouldn't, but many times it's overdone, and you'll see the person that was very full of life, very too low key. It changes, it seems like, their personality a little bit.
Yeah, and here's the thing. If you're taking HRT or antidepressants and you're listening to this podcast, I do not want you to stop.
No, right.
You have talked to your doctor and made the best decision for yourself that you can. But every woman is unique. That's another big misconception around menopause. I think we all think, oh yeah, hot flashes, no more periods, donezo, that's menopause.
But isn't it true that they slap a ton of us on antidepressants when we hit menopause?
It is true.
And really, it's a lot of the times it could be something that you could change by diet, exercise, getting your hormones balanced.
You're so right. Yeah. Yes, exactly. HRT is a 25 billion with a B dollar industry in the United States. HRT. And women will spend $20,000 in their lifetime trying to mitigate the impacts of menopause. That, on average, that is huge. And I think another misconception around menopause, right, is that it's just, it's this natural thing that happens. Absolutely, it is natural. It's not a disease. It happens to every woman who lives long enough to reach the age of menopause. It happens to every woman. So I think, there's a whole history, a really complicated history around the way women's medical concerns have been researched, funded, treated, viewed, that we just need to break away from. And I think HRT and antidepressants goes hand in hand with this sort of the overprescription of them goes hand in hand with this idea that women, when they reach midlife, are somehow broken.
And you're trying to fix it.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm reading in your book that about 75% of women experience hot flashes during menopause, and 80% of menopausal women will experience hot flashes for up to 2 years. Now, if we're not going to overly prescribe, what's some natural ways that we can mitigate this?
Well, if you think about what's happening in perimenopause, is your follicles are not releasing as much. So your follicles are essentially your ovaries. I'm going to super overcomplicate some things. So I want your listeners to take some of these things I'm saying with a grain of salt. If you want to know more, you should go digging more, but we only have 45 minutes and I want to get to some meat of some things. So if your follicles are not making enough as much estrogen. And your estrogen is starting to sort of go like a little beach waves at first, right? So you don't sort of notice the changes. But eventually in perimenopause, this stage leading to menopause, you are going to notice that it's more like a roller coaster, because your body is not producing as much estrogen, and estrogen is so critical in a woman's body to almost every single system in our body. It helps regulate so much. So hot flashes are a really good indicator that estrogen is sort of roller coastering everywhere, because what's happening is your skin response, estrogen, you have estrogen receptors on your skin, right? So if your estrogen is going down and it's fluctuating, your estrogen and the systems that it controls in terms of temperature regulation also starts to go a little haywire. And so of course you have hot flashes, because your body doesn't understand when you're truly overheated and when it's just an estrogen misfiring, essentially, like communication in your brain. So if you can balance your estrogen levels, that's the first thing you want to do. A lot of women find relief with phytoestrogens, which are plant-based estrogens. You can take those, in supplements. We include them in our supplements. They will go a long way toward helping you sort of make those roller coaster movements into a little bit more of a nice, calm beach wave.
Yes,
so think of it that way.
We like calm beach waves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing is probiotics.
Yeah.
There is so much research around probiotics and how they can help women deconjugate estrogen. This is a really cool process. So I do want to talk a little bit more about this, because
I am all about probiotics. That's our sponsor, is
I know,
Dr. O'Hara's. Yeah.
So exciting, because I really love probiotics, because your gut and your microbiome is it's like your second brain. There are more neuroreceptors in your gut than there are anywhere else, right? And so it's sending millions and millions and millions of signals back to your brain about how to regulate your systems. And so if you're low on estrogen, what happens is your body will start to hold on to it because it knows it needs it, right? A woman's body needs estrogen. So we'll start to store our own estrogen. And guess where we store it? Fat cells. So, you always hear women in their 40s start to say, well, I can't lose weight as easily as I used to, because your body is trying to hold on to adipose tissue so that you can store that estrogen, because your body knows it needs it. So if you can use probiotics to balance out your microbiome, you can do this really fascinating thing called deconjugating estrogen, which means you can reuse that estrogen your body's been storing more effectively, and you can recycle it so it doesn't again get stored and it doesn't get passed out in your waste. You're making use of it. It's so cool. It's a really fascinating process.
Liking that word already. Let's deconjugate.
Exactly. And it basically means you're recycling and reusing your own estrogen. And, for me, there's nothing better, because it's something your body's already making. You don't have to go try to supplement with hormone replacement therapy. Now, there are some women who absolutely should be supplementing with HRT, and that is your decision to make with your doctor. But if you find and you talk to your doctor that HRT is not the right option for you, check out probiotics, look into natural supplements to help ease those roller coaster fluctuations and make them happy little beach waves.
Yeah, I found it interesting. I had Udo's, Udo Erasmus on my podcast yesterday, and he created flaxseed oil, but he was saying flaxseed is a great phytoestrogen, and it helps regulate estrogen both in perimenopause and menopause. So get your flaxseed now.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
get your education now.
right.
And even if even if you're a younger woman and you are like, okay, so you're saying that perimenopause is something I have to think about in my 40s. Absolutely. It's something you need to start thinking about in your 40s. The average woman will hit the average age for hitting menopause, that consecutive 12 months without a period, is 51. So the average transition, perimenopausal transition, is 7 years. So 44, I mean, that's textbook, right? So it's no wonder why doctors said you're in perimenopause. I was at the literal textbook age where perimenopause is something that a woman would enter. So if you're a younger woman and you're thinking, yeah, it's still down the road for me. Yes, that's true. But
Not far.
it's not as far as you think. And
It
the more
isn't.
you can start thinking about your health, really considering your bone health. So exercise is so important to making sure that osteoporosis doesn't set in when menopause hits as well, because now your estrogen's messing with your bone absorption,
Well,
because it regulates that system
not
too.
just that, not just your bones. That's what I discovered the hard way, is that you can, if you are overtraining when you hit menopause, you can rip your muscles away from the bone. So you got to be careful once menopause hits to listen to your body, to do weight training. But if I was still doing gymnastics on the stage and fitness routines, you have to really be mindful about good warm-ups, not overtraining. If you're running miles upon miles, you might want to consider cutting back a tad, just because your body may not be completely, like, it's going through a lot, and it might not be wanting as much. Like, exercise is good, but too much exercise in menopause, too much, like, I mean excessive, is because you're thinking, oh, I've got to lose weight, I've got to get this off. So then what do? You think you have to do more. I would say to do a little less, cut back a little bit, cut your stress a little bit, because we have that lack of estrogen, then we start secreting a little more cortisol if our body is overly stressed, which there, in a roundabout way, the science would be that was probably why I tore the muscle, because I was secreting too much cortisol.
And cortisol, you are so right, Linda. Cortisol, absolutely. Estrogen affects your cortisol production. And so the fluctuation of your estrogen means you feel a little more anxious, you feel a little more stressed. And I didn't know I didn't
Yeah,
know
I've
that.
never had anxiety in my life. A bomb could go off beside me and I would still be chill. Okay. I hit menopause and I was anxious for the first time, and it would always hit me right at night.
And I don't, okay, so I have to, a little personal side note. Did you have what I call menopause rage? Because my estrogen was fluctuating and I didn't know it until
Yes,
I
a little
thought
bit. Yes.
back.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that's what you called it, but yeah, I probably did a little bit. My husband would say a little.
exactly. Well, that's what clued me in, because I was doing all this research and I was like, okay, mood swings. Yeah, that makes sense, because I've been saying terrible things to my husband that I never would have said, even 2 years ago. What is going on there? That's not me. I'm a pretty happy person. So what the hell is that about?
I'm back to chill again. So it does go away for anybody listening who may be experiencing it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. If you're going through something that's unusual for you and you're in your, early, mid, late 40s, if you haven't hit menopause and you're noticing it's late or early 50s, it's probably got something to do with perimenopause, and you should not blame yourself. Go do the research, go find some answers, talk to your doctor. And, if your doctor doesn't have the answers, make them find the answers for you. We really need to be our own advocates when it comes to our healthcare. So, I realize healthcare is a privilege, especially in this country, and we don't always have we maybe have 15 minutes with our doctor twice a year if we're lucky. I get it. But find some resources that can help you
I feel
find
like
some
we could
answers,
have
because
a
it's not
therapy
just
group
you.
after this. Everybody complaining about their symptoms. I mean, because women, for the longest time, this topic really was not talked about. It was taboo, swept under the rug, and then mansplained to us. Like you've got a doctor that doesn't go through menopause telling you it's all in your head. But
Yeah.
we'll move past that. I just want to say, what about menopause brain?
Oh, the brain fog and the not
Yeah, no,
remembering your
I've
own
really
child's
not
name.
witnessed it myself, but my friends are witnessing it. So yeah, what
Yeah,
about it? What
it's
can they do for
absolutely
that?
a thing. And turns out it's related because estrogen helps control your cognitive abilities, right? When I said estrogen is integral to just about every system in a woman's body, I wasn't kidding. So you'll find a lot of times that you can't remember someone's name. We used to always make fun of my grandmother because she would go through like the dog's name, the neighbor's name before she got to your name. But it wasn't her fault. And it didn't mean that she was losing control of her mental faculties. It meant that menopause was making it harder for her to recall the right name. Menopause induced aphasia is a thing, where you can't think of the right word.
It is. It really is. And I won't say I didn't go through any, but I think I've pretty much come out of it. But what it is your brain just gets it's just very foggy. And I think people find it harder to absorb facts and concentrate. And I don't think it lasts, like, personally all day. It just seems to hit people in waves. So that makes sense about the estrogen.
Yeah,
What can we do to um, help with that during, because I don't think it lasts forever, but what can women do?
right. It doesn't last forever. There are a few things that I would suggest. First, try to make the estrogen fluctuations a little less by supplementing. Eat a lot of fiber. Because fiber is really, really good at helping especially if you're taking a probiotic, helping you make use of that probiotic efficiently, feed it so that it's thriving. You really want that. Um, the other thing is explain to the people that you interact with on a regular basis what is happening to you. It is okay to talk about menopause. It's okay to talk about brain fog. It's okay to say my body is going through changes and it's impacting my cognitive function. That doesn't mean that I'm less effective at my job. That doesn't mean I'm less effective or care less about my relationships. But if we can't have honest conversations, then people are going to make assumptions. And, because women feel embarrassed about this topic.
Yeah, like sweating, like you're in a meeting and you just start profusely. My hair went from curly to straight.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
seriously. And it was in this, we were getting, I think it's before we paid off our house, we were getting like a loan, like not a loan, but we were redoing our mortgage. And I just started sweating and my hair literally went from curly to straight. And I wanted to just rip off my jacket. I was just so like, I was like, is it hot in here? And of course their air was broken too to compound it. So
Sure, of course.
then at least they didn't think I was crazy. They were like, the air conditioning is broken. But I was like, oh no, you've stuck me in the oven. I felt like somebody put really, really, it was hot. Anybody relate out there?
Probably a whole lot. And when it happens in a work meeting and the air conditioning is working, it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
So if and people will make assumptions, they'll think that you haven't prepared for the meeting, right? It's so frustrating. And if you're having brain fog and you can't think of the word, even though you rehearsed this presentation 700 times before you gave it, it's frustrating, and it impacts women's ability to advance in their careers. Right when we're hitting peak career status in our 40s, we start having all of these, 1-2 punches from menopause and perimenopause. And if we're not open and honest about it, people are going to make assumptions. They're going to think that you can't do your job effectively. That's not the case. Don't let them make that assumption about you. Have an honest conversation so that you can put in some workplace policies and help the next person who comes up behind you who has that issue too. If we're not honest, if we're not open, it's just going to continue to be this thing that hammers women down just when we should be reaching our peak earning potential.
And I would say, just skipping on, because what you were talking about, we were talking about the hot flashes, and you were talking about how the drops in the hormones make your brain get a little fuzzy, and where that's probably mild, that's putting it mildly, but your diet really affects all those things. And I was talking to Udo's again, and he actually, some people do not advocate soy, but he did. And I have to say, you look at the Asian countries, and they're eating soy, and they're not having near as much of the symptoms as we're having. Their diets are better. Their exercise is, they're active, I think, more as a whole. And so how much do you think the phytoestrogens like soy and flax seeds and all of these things come into play?
Well, I believe in them because I put them in the products that we create at Menolabs, but even beyond that, it's all about making sure that your estrogen doesn't fluctuate wildly. And things that can exacerbate that, you're absolutely on point when you say diet. Sugar is one of the worst things to cause hot flashes. Alcohol is another to cause hot flashes. And our American Western diet is full of sugar. When you really start looking at how much sugar you're consuming on a daily basis, it is a lot. You're eating bread and there's sugar added. So
and you got away with it before, but you get away with less now.
Exactly.
Which seems so unfair.
And you should do your research around the phytoestrogens that you're thinking about taking. Absolutely. There's no one size fits all solution. There's no magic pill. Do not trust anyone who says there's a magic pill. That's not true. You need to do your research, and you need to talk with your doctor, because there will be things, if you've had a history of cancer, there are going to be some phytoestrogens that you shouldn't consume, and your doctor can educate you around that. But by and large, phytoestrogens are one of the best things that you can do to help mitigate the impacts of all of that estrogen fluctuation. Absolutely.
What about caffeine? I know that our cortisol's already spiked, and caffeine can spike your cortisol up to 27%. So, do you tell people to cut back, cut it out, or have as much as they want?
Well, I do advocate for cutting back your caffeine consumption, but I have not followed my own advice.
I know. You're like, you can't give me all these symptoms and then take away my coffee, darn it. Or what about alcohol? You feel like drinking because you're but with alcohol, I have to say, it's very, very high sugar. And it seems to me, I think that it affects more in menopause than it did before.
I think everything in moderation.
Yeah, well, that's a good rule of thumb.
Right. And knowing when you're likely. So if you think that alcohol or caffeine or whatever it is might be triggering your menopause symptoms, you should track it. And so that you can understand, is it actually triggering these things? That, there are about 40 symptoms that we commonly associate with menopause, and I didn't know most of them before I started researching. I didn't know, like, allergies, increased allergies are associated with perimenopause and menopause. And so there are now things in my backyard that I'm allergic to that I wasn't allergic to 10 years ago. So start tracking these things. If you think that especially if they're impacting your quality of life, start tracking them, start trying to see if you can see patterns in your triggers, because that will help you cut out or consume those triggers in moderation. And your quality of life will be better because you understand what's happening in your body to cause these things, and you can make use of your knowledge. Knowledge is power.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Now, I'm going to get on to this next topic that a lot of people like to skip, but we cannot. Low sex drive. Many women, as well as men, because they have their andropause, experience their sex drive going down. And I just don't think, like, if your partner's sex drive didn't go down and yours did, that can be difficult to navigate. What are some tips on that?
Yeah. So I would say for any woman who thinks that any of the things that she's experiencing may be related to perimenopause or menopause, she should talk to her partner as soon as she identifies that might be an issue. Because if you're not honest with your partner and you're not saying, okay, so for example, when I was having my menopause rage and I didn't know what it was, as soon as I determined that that's what it was, I told my husband, I said, look, I think these things were happening because of this, and I'm taking these steps to help me improve and get back to myself, because this isn't me. He was so relieved because he thought it was something he was doing. Right. And so if low libido is something that you're experiencing because your estrogen is fluctuating, it's absolutely going to happen. If you can be honest with your partner, and they need reassurance. They need to know it's not them. They need to know you still find them attractive. And I'm betting that, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be willing to help you find solutions to help you get back to, having a sex drive again, enjoying being intimate with your partner, because it is a critical component of a relationship. And if you had a healthy sex drive before perimenopause set in, you can still have a healthy sex drive. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember what Suzanne Summers said, because she has so many great books on menopause. I interviewed her for Miss Fitness magazine once, and I think she's called it the 7 Dwarfs of menopause. There was grumpy, dopey, she names it all off, and the last one was
so
it all dried up. So what do people do when they get the 7 Dwarfs of menopause? One of them being around this issue of sex, and their vagina is dry. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, lubricant. What else could they do?
Lubricant, and of course, lubrication, vaginal lubrication is, again, directly tied to estrogen. So if you can help even out your estrogen fluctuations and make use of your own estrogen, that's going to help significantly. Lubrication, more foreplay, and it's not always
More
a one
foreplay.
size.
Yeah.
Right. It's not always a one size fits all. You might have to get a little
Let's not
creative.
do the human sacrifice tonight, honey. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, when I say creative, that's pretty creative, but
I'm just being silly. So HRT, bioidentical hormones. You don't do those either? You just do none?
I don't do them at all. I was really lucky in that I was able to identify what was going on with me. I have a doctor who was willing to take time and really help me find some education around this, point me in the right sources, and to say, hey, this is what's happening to you and it's natural, right? She didn't say to me, it's all in your head. So that was,
See,
I mean,
that's
I
a
was
big
lucky.
part, yeah, is to understand your symptoms, learn how to manage them. But I will just tell you personally, bioidentical hormones takes all that out the window, and I mean, the birds are singing again, and you just feel, I personally advocate it. I think like it's a godsend as far as, helping with all those symptoms. But you want to
And
get the bioidentical.
yeah, so I haven't had to do that because I've found and created some solutions for myself that work. But again, every woman is unique, and you've got to do the right thing for yourself. So if it's HRT, if it's bioidentical hormones, more power to you, because it's about your life and your quality of life. And you've got to make your informed decision. That's what I would say. It
Right.
has to
I
be
have
an
friends that have
informed
done
decision.
both ways, like no, none. And I've kind of went on and off just to see like what the difference was. But I would just say until you've completely went through menopause, you may change. I mean, I don't know. You
Oh,
might
yeah,
change your
yeah.
mind because I didn't do it until I was 55. So I'm 58 now.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that is a misconception around menopause is that, something that worked for you when you were 44 might
Doesn't
not
work
work
now.
for you when you're 54, and that's
Yeah,
okay. You
totally
can
great.
you don't have to dial into one solution and think it's going to work forever, because
Right. It
that
won't.
wasn't true in your 20s. Why would it be
Mhm.
true in your 40s and your 50s and your 60s?
It's the
Right?
same with your exercise. I mean, I took the advanced hormone course from IIN, Integrated School of Nutrition, but it gives you like, you know, 6 months of studies, but basically just what you did when you're 20 doesn't work when you're 40. What you did when you're 40 doesn't work when you're 60. You have to make adjustments to both your nutrition, your sleep, and your exercise plan, especially once you hit menopause. And as long as you recognize that what worked always won't always work, then I think that helps a ton because you're not stuck in cement, you know. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
sometimes we think it's just got to be like this always worked and this is the way it is, and we keep beating it like it, into the ground, really.
Right. You know what? Life is change. Embrace the change. And
Oh my gosh. Oh,
embrace
oh,
the
that's what
change.
I wanted to
No pun
say to you.
intended.
I want to say that to you earlier. I personally feel we should just embrace menopause, embrace the changes, just embrace the whole thing. Um, and, longevity, of course, we all want to age gracefully, but just embrace your age, whatever it is, that's what I think.
I agree. I could not agree more, Linda. You are absolutely 100% right.
Right. Because when you're young, you wish you were older. When you're older, you wish you were younger. It's all this, just embrace where you are right now in this very moment and enjoy it. Because you know what? It's a lot better than being 6 feet under, I'm telling you.
And I have to ask you, so by and large, I think 97% of the women that I have talked to who have passed the menopause 12-month mark, who are, can say without a doubt they're in menopause, say it's the best time of their life.
Yeah, it is. It's great. Like I'm all my dreams are coming true. Um, my, I couldn't even be feeling in a better place right now. I'm in a better place as far as all of my dreams coming true than any other time in my life.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh,
And you really don't, I mean, I truly believe age is a number. It's what you bring to the years of your life and what you put into what you do and your attitude about everything. It can really help you through menopause. And you said you had mood swings.
Yeah, I did. I don't anymore.
Okay. Because I think women have mood swings, not just in menopause, it's also before, because of our estrogen levels and our serotonin and all these things. So, what does your app that you have tell us about that, and how does that help women out there with, answering their questions and getting them kind of centered around solutions?
Absolutely. So when Danielle and I started Menolabs, I was interviewing lots of women, trying to understand what they needed, how we could help. And I interviewed a woman who said she was using 11 different apps to try to manage what was happening to her in perimenopause. And she thought in the 12-month menopause transition, but she was using 11 different apps. And I thought, there's that can't be normal. So I started including that when I talked to women. Turns out it was fairly normal. 11 was a little on the extreme side, but they were using 4 or 5. And so we decided we needed to create an app that would allow women to do a couple of things. The first is to find answers to their questions, because that's the number one thing women told us. They didn't know what was happening. They didn't know where to go for answers. And they didn't know who to trust because their doctor didn't have the answers. And when you Google things, you have cancer. Right? And so we created an app. It's called Menolife, where you can log on, and there's a community side where you can talk to other women, you can talk to experts, you can get answers around very specific kinds of things that happen in menopause and perimenopause, including symptoms and diet and all kinds of stuff. But you can also track your health data. So you can track your symptoms. You can figure out what might be triggering those, because we've already listed common triggers. So when you go and you record a hot flash, we say, did you experience any of these things? Did you consume caffeine? Did you eat sugar? Right? All of those different things. You can start to figure out patterns so that you can help yourself get rid of the triggers or lessen those triggers. And you can take all that information to your doctor and prove to them that it is not in your head. You've got data, and doctors will look at data and believe data more than they will believe us when we say we think we have these things happening. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to give women the tools to track their health, understand what's happening, and then be able to take it to their doctor and say, this is what I need help with. Here is my information. So it's called Menolife, and we're so proud of it. We're rolling out improvements all the time. And I really think it's a game changer for women's health.
I love it. I'm all about helping women too. And I love that you did your homework. Now, I would be amiss if I didn't ask these 2 questions for everybody. So around the subject of weight gain during menopause, and sleep, I think they go together. So address that.
Okay. So, you know how I said estrogen is responsible for regulating most of your systems? It impacts your sleep as well, right? And it's cyclical. So if you are stressed because your estrogen is fluctuating, and you've got all this cortisol in your system, and you go to lay your head down on the pillow at night and you're still stressed, you're still thinking about all of these things because you can't turn your brain off, because you've got all this cortisol running around, it's cyclical. So you don't sleep, so you get up and you're groggy, so you don't exercise, right? And you just grab a donut on the way to work or in the break room at work because you got up late because you were tired, and your body wants to hold on to all this adipose tissue anyway because it needs to store your estrogen somewhere. And now you've given it the building blocks to create more adipose tissue by eating the donut. And so it stores your estrogen, and you're not making use of it because your diet is terrible, because you're not sleeping, because you don't have the time to make a fiber-rich breakfast in the morning. It just keeps building on itself. And if you can take some phytoestrogens or a probiotic that will help you mitigate those fluctuations, if you can find a sleep aid that helps you turn your brain off at night and get some rest. We have a sleep aid, but I'm not going to pitch it. If you want to find it, you'll find it. If you can get some rest, you're more likely to eat healthy the next day. You're more likely to remember to take your supplements the next day. You're more likely to make your doctor's appointment because you're not running behind. It's all about doing the right things that will just keep building on themselves so that you're mitigating the impacts as much as you can. For years I couldn't sleep. And I've just have been a serial insomniac for 20 years, since I was in my early 20s, and now I sleep because I found a solution that works for me.
The sleep is huge for the weight gain, because there's
It
a
is.
study out there, there's several studies, but one that in particular that I remember, where they did thousands of middle-aged women. You want to at least get 7 hours or more
Yep.
of sleep, not less. An hour and a half less was a lot more weight gain. And so I know a lot of you are busy and you just think that, you've got to get all these things done, but you'd be much more productive if you were getting that extra hour and a half of sleep and
Yeah.
feel better. You probably, it would definitely help keep the weight gain at bay, according to the study.
Yeah, and exercise goes a long way to making sure you can sleep well as well, right? Because exercise will help reduce your cortisol, and it will help you be physically tired. So now you've turned your brain off because you exercised earlier in the day, and you've helped your body understand that it's time to sleep now, right?
I think
because
it helps with mood swings too.
It does.
Yeah, because you're getting all those endorphins, those feel-good hormones, and
Yep.
we want to keep you with your sunny disposition.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, it's always better on the sunny side.
It is. Absolutely, it is. Some of us have to learn that the hard way.
Oh my gosh. Well, where can everybody get your book, and tell them the title?
Yeah, it's called How to Master Menopause. And in it, we talk about the 6 most common symptoms. So that's going to include hot flashes and mood swings and weight gain. The big ones that women are most concerned about, and really notice the impacts of the most. We're going to talk about how you can find some things that might be triggering that. We're going to talk about how you can lessen their impact. We're going to talk about practical tips and advice for lessening their impact in your life. And you can go to menolabs.com/sisterhood of sweat.
Oh, there you go.
And you can get that book completely for free. It's
$12.99. Get rid of the extra sweat.
We sell it on Amazon, and it's $12.99 in paperback form on Amazon, and it has a 4-star rating, which I'm pretty proud of. So we feel like it does help. And then of course we have our app if you ever want to check that out, but get the book, because the book is a really good place to get your basic information about what's happening in your body, why it's happening, and what you can do. Practical, everyday, take charge now of your symptom kind of advice. So Menolabs, it's menolabs.com/sisterhood of sweat.
I love it. I love it so much. Now, I know you said you weren't going to pitch your sleep supplement, but some of us with inquiring minds want to know.
Okay.
So, the sleep supplement. Now, I don't ever want to take one I took once, because I didn't realize that it was a sleep supplement, first of all.
Oh.
Right. I didn't realize it would make you sleepy because it was supposed to be, it had curcumin and it had black pepper, but I didn't know it had I didn't know it was one that says take a night. Okay. So
So,
it made
right.
me incredibly sleepy and I was driving to work. So,
Oh,
well, I felt like it should have come with a label of warning.
yeah.
First of all, we should always read your bottle thoroughly. I
Yep.
just, I just thought it was the same curcumin I always picked up,
Ah,
and or turmeric, whatever. And I guess it wasn't, but it was another. It was the same brand, but they had two different
oh,
kinds. So
wow.
always read your bottle as a lesson. But what I'm getting at is we don't want to be groggy when we get up in the morning. We
Right.
want a sleep supplement that enhances our sleep. And so, what is in your sleep supplement?
So it is 7 different ingredients, and one of them is GABA. And that's a precursor to all of these other things that help you fall asleep and stay asleep. It also has magnesium, um, and a few other ingredients that are designed to help you turn your brain off, because that was always my sticking point. I couldn't stop thinking when I laid down. So the GABA helps you turn your brain off. And then all of these other ingredients they're not time released necessarily, because the capsule's not formulated to be time released, but they impact your system at different points when they metabolize. And
Right.
so it helps you stay asleep. So I now get 7,
Yeah.
8 hours consistently. It's called Well Rested by Menolabs.
Yeah, because some people have trouble either staying asleep or going to sleep.
I have trouble with both. So that's why
Magnesium helps you go,
yeah,
and
that's why we
melatonin helps you
created
stay
this.
asleep.
Exactly. So that's why we created this product to, because I I always want to make something that will help as many women as possible with one product. And so we formulated it so that you could use it if you have trouble falling asleep. You
Yeah.
could use it if you have trouble staying asleep. And for women who have both, you're right, it will do that as well. Um, but I make supplements. That's part of my business, and I believe in them, and I don't create something that I won't take myself or that I
Right.
won't give to my friends and my family. Every product that we make, I stand behind 100% me and my co-founder, Danielle. But I always want people to understand that it doesn't matter what pill it is, who it's from, who stands by it. It's maybe not the right solution for you. There's no one size fits all. There's no magic pill. I say it over and over again. There's
Right,
no
right.
magic
We're
pill.
all looking for that magic pill, but I got to
You
tell
know,
you, there really isn't one.
I mean, if they ever make a Barbie pill, sign me up. But it ain't happening. It's not happening.
Oh my gosh, Vanessa, you're making me laugh today. What is what is your favorite quote?
Uh, well, I'm a big Sherlock Holmes fan. And even on my Facebook page, I have data, data, data. I cannot make bricks without clay. And that's it's my favorite quote because I I have an inquiring brain and I want to know things. But if it isn't data driven, if I don't have science behind it, then I'm not interested, right?
Oh
I
my
want
gosh,
to make,
I am so about finding out the science, and people will say, you don't really need to know that much. I'm like, yes, I do need to know.
yeah. And because I really do think that knowledge is power. So if you have
Right,
if you have data that you can apply to real world situations and make the world a better place, why wouldn't you?
right.
So that's my favorite quote ever of all
I
time.
love it. It was such an unexpected one. And that's what I like about asking people their favorite quote. And lastly, what would you like to say to all women out there?
Um, Menopause is going to happen to you. It's okay. It is not something you need to be afraid of, but it is something you should educate yourself around and understand that your journey is going to be unique. You should embrace it. It is full of so much positive inducing change. If you can, if you can take charge of your symptoms, and it really doesn't take that much to take charge of your symptoms. If you embrace it, if you look at it as this thing that opens up so many possibilities for the rest of your life, which it does, man, you are just going to have the best time when you hit your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Your life is going to be so much better. Trust me. Trust me. I talk to thousands of women a day who are going through it, who have gone through it, and it can be an amazing, life-changing, positive experience.
I love that. And I think, if you're wigging out about it, then you may make your partner feel wigged out about it. It's really the attitude that you come to. And one of the things I kind of decided was I could look around and find, because we get afraid of age, I think, look around and see all these people that haven't aged well and be like, oh no, I'm going to be like this, I'm going to be like that. Or I could look around, I can find evidence based on what I want to see. So I could look around and see countless women aging well, living well, looking good, and loving life. So that's what I'm looking for.
And it's attainable. It absolutely is.
Yeah, so much. Well, thank you so much, Vanessa. I just want to acknowledge you so much for being so thorough and well versed on this topic that can be a difficult conversation sometimes, but you made it light and fun. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Linda. I have had a blast. Thank you so much.
And thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Sisterhood of Sweat. And make sure to check out Menolabs, and don't forget the code. Say it again one more time for everybody.
It is menolabs.com/sisterhood of sweat.
There you go. And are they getting a book?
They're getting How to Master Menopause for free.
So make sure you go get that, guys. I mean, even if you haven't went through it yet, you're going to go through it at some point. It's almost unavoidable. All right. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.